Welcome back to another episode of The Water Guy Unfiltered. This is Paul.
This is Ethan.
We are here to give you another shot of education and fun and hopefully a little bit of smiles and laughs along the way.
It's always fun here.
It's always fun.
We have a good time.
Yeah, and it's been a couple weeks since our last one.
Yeah.
Last one was microplastics, if I remember right.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
That was
It's very informative.
That everybody was excited to hear that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny because one of the other offices did, I haven't seen it, but they showed me that, hey, one of the other offices decided that they want to go ahead and start shooting some videos. I guess after a couple of years, they realized that, maybe it's not a terrible thing to go ahead and be informative and try to get yourself out there.
Yeah, man.
And I heard that they just did one, and it's funny because we shot ours before they released theirs, and theirs was on microplastics.
Huh.
So it's like kind of funny. Both of us were thinking the exact same topic, which is just bizarre when you think about the odds of that.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? Anything new happen?
I already shared my allergy situation with you. Never had pollen allergies before, at least symptoms to it. This weekend just hit me like a truck. Or this past weekend, at least.
I get blamed for everything.
Yeah.
Pollen. Get it? I know it's a dad joke. Bad dad joke.
Man, I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers. He does all those like dad jokes and anti-jokes all the time. And I'm someone that like appreciates that type of comedy. So I laugh at it every time, and he looks at me and he's like, "Why are you laughing? That was stupid." And I'm like, "That's why it's funny. It's stupid."
Stupid humor.
Exactly.
It appeals to me too.
So
you looked a little like flustered when you came in here. Like,
oh yeah. So I was I got gas before I came here, and you know the Shell station down the street.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah, so there was this guy at the pump right in front of me. And he had his girlfriend or something on the phone, and she was going through like the car speakers so I could hear their conversation. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, it's hard not
right
to
next to him.
Broadcasting.
Right. Yeah. So he had like a wrap on his hand that was falling off, and he was just like freaking out, cursing like, "God damn it, shit!" Like all that type of stuff.
Like his skin was coming off.
Yeah, like because that wrap was coming off. Turns out he had poison ivy on his arm. And it was pretty bad. And then he just started screaming about how his boss fired him and everybody. I was like, dude, you gotta calm down with that.
Yeah, no idea why he would have gotten fired. He sounds like a valuable asset to the company.
Right.
Little sarcasm oozing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do feel sorry for him with the whole poison ivy comment, because that is something that I grew up in the Midwest, and down here in the Carolinas and Virginia, there's poison ivy that it isn't just a plant. Down here, it's a vine.
Yeah.
And I had never seen that before, because it doesn't exist like that up north. Really bizarre. Back when I first went to NC State, I was on the wrestling team, so we're all out in the swamp behind the dorm, just being kids, right?
Right.
And these big, huge vines were hanging from the trees. Well, genius that I decided I was going to swing. I was going to swing from the vine like Tarzan. And I did not know I was swinging from poison ivy. Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
My body reacted so bad that my whole face, my head swelled up, my eyes swelled shut. They put me on steroids. I remember I had to go to the wrestling coach and tell him I wasn't able to go to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I approached him in the cafeteria, and I knock on his shoulder. It was kind of funny because he turns, and I know this is an unfiltered podcast, but I can't even repeat what he said. He was like, "Get the F away from me, you freak." I'm like, "Coach, I can't practice." He's like, "Just get out of here. I don't want to see you." And he used a lot of profanity. But yeah. So, yeah, I used to think that the more you get into poison ivy, the more immune you get to it. No, it's actually the opposite.
Yep.
So the more you get into it, the worse the reaction is every single time. So, yeah, that's my poison ivy story.
Were you ever on the East Coast before you moved out here?
Nope.
For school or anything?
Nope.
how'd you feel when you saw? Actually, you know what kudzu is, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How'd you feel when you saw kudzu for the first time?
I didn't really know what to think of that green evil carpet stuff that
Mm-hmm.
just devours everything.
An entire forest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would literally see forests just taken over as the stuff grows over and shades everything out and kills it. And yeah, that's some weird stuff. I heard it put a certain way when I was down in Atlanta. They said the vine that ate the South,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So you don't want kudzu and you don't want poison ivy.
Yeah.
Don't plant either one.
Mm-mm.
Uh, so anyway, yeah. So Carolinas and Virginia. Uh, today, what we let's see. Today's episode is going to be. I don't exactly know what to call it, but it's going to be. Let's just call it not magnesium.
Okay.
So, all right, I'll just break right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's called manganese.
Manganese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Manganese, also known by people that don't pronounce it very well. We have heard customers call in because they're aware that they have this stuff, and I crap you not. We have heard people say, "Look, I have a problem with manganese," and we're like, "Manganese? What the hell is manganese?"
Meningitis?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
It's like,
We can't help with that.
so you don't need to call me. You need
Yeah.
to call a doctor for
That's
that.
a real doctor. We had one lady, this is probably the funniest one. She called it mag Nazis. And if you see how it's spelled, mag Nazis, yeah, mag Nazi. That's what she said.
Magnazi?
Mang Nazi.
Mangnazi.
But she said mag Nazi. She was just terrible at pronunciation. But anyway,
Oh.
we've heard it all. But manganese is much different than magnesium. So we just want to set that out right at the very beginning.
Awesome.
And manganese in our area, it's actually not uncommon. And it's a really freaky one because usually the good rule of thumb for us is if you've got iron in the water, you might have manganese. But I don't think I've ever seen manganese in the water without iron being with it. So it's like they like to hang out together.
Okay.
So if you have iron in your water, you would know it because you get orange stuff. Everybody knows what rust looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, there's even a paint called rust. But yeah, when you've got iron in the water, you've got kind of orangish, browny type stains and deposits and stuff like that. When you have manganese in the water, it turns black. It looks like the blackest motor oil out of a diesel engine. Yeah.
Huh.
I remember the first time I actually saw it out in the field. This was, actually right at almost 10 years ago. This customer we like to look at the back of the toilet tank because we call that the window to the plumbing system.
Mm-hmm.
So we pull the lid off of that thing, and I saw what looked to be a tank full of pitch black, like the blackest fluid you've ever seen. And I remember going, what in the hell is that?
Right.
And at the time, I was literally like day 2. So this guy that was with me, he was kind of showing me the ropes about what's in the water here. He was like, oh my gosh, I think that's manganese. So it requires special test equipment and special methods and stuff like that to be able to see if you have it and what the levels are. And I can't remember. I think at the time we did not have that stuff, so we had to go off the assumption that it was. But I invested in all the equipment, so that's like one of the plain Jane basics now.
Right.
But yeah, he in fact definitely had manganese.
Mm.
But yeah, a pitch black toilet tank is crazy. And I know people listening aren't going to be able to fully check out
Well,
the picture that I just now am showing. But yes, we have water that has manganese in it in a bucket, and it looks
like a
nasty.
bucket of coffee.
Yeah, like the blackest, darkest coffee you could see.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So what is manganese?
What is manganese?
It's a metal.
Okay.
And it's one of those things. Does it have any health impact? Obviously, it's got like a big impact in terms of staining, and it'll actually, yeah, it'll definitely stain anything that it touches: toilets, toilet tanks, toilet bowls, showers, laundry. You don't want black laundry coming out, unless of course you're trying to do darks. But yeah, it's one of those things you don't really want it.
All right.
It's considered an essential trace element. So what does that mean? Trace element means really it's not even included in the recommended daily allowance. If you look on the back of the ingredients, if we had food here, you'd be able to look on the back and see manganese is not even listed on it because it's just one of those trace ones. So it's really benign. It doesn't strike as anything scary. You don't need a lot of it, and actually you don't want a lot of it.
Mm.
You need just a tiniest amount. And yeah, pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. So why could you possibly need it? Well, some of the positives or potential positives are that it is good for bone health. It's good for the immune system. It's good for reproduction, metabolism, and it's good for antioxidants. So some decent things that you would have a hard time really living without if you were short on them.
Right.
It is a cofactor or a coenzyme of many enzymes, which is basically a fancy word for it buddies up with other things, or it's part of a process that involves other enzymes. And some of the biggest ones really are the breakdown of carbohydrates, protein, and cholesterols. So yes, without it, you're probably going to not have a perfect life.
Right.
It also works with vitamin K to help clot if you have a cut or a bleed or something like that, which obviously is promoting healing. So you need it for that. And then it gets all gray and shady from here. We did a lot of digging to prepare for today's episode, and okay, I'll just throw it out there. In animals, they said that bone density, due to cofactor with several enzymes, it increases bone formation, or it helps with bone formation. But it can't do it alone. It still has to have a lot of other things going along with it to be able to do its job. It's kind of like having a Porsche with a driver but no gas. You're not going to get very far.
Okay.
Yeah, I just pulled that one out of my butt. So I remember I said that was in animals.
Right.
So then they started doing some studies on, what human studies, and they did some studies between osteoporosis and manganese levels, because obviously it's good for bone health, right? So they're like, oh well, if it can make animals' bone density better, then it must have something to do with people's. Well, there was a whole bunch of different studies. Some of them were positive, some of them were inconclusive, some of them just absolutely zero data at all. And really there wasn't anything specific that it could do, but there was one study that over 2 years they did see improvement in bone quality, bone density, actually. That was the only one trial, but it not only had manganese, it also had zinc, calcium, and copper. So they think the words on that one were, we are unable to determine if manganese had any direct impact. So in animals, it appears to help. In people, not so much. But basically, that's the possible benefits from it. There was something else they were digging into, because one of the things that it ends up doing is like breaking down the carbohydrates, proteins, and cholesterols. They were trying to find out if there was a diabetes link, because diabetes is an epidemic.
Right.
So yeah, this one got even muddier than the first one on bone density. So one study showed that you were 7.88 times higher to have type 2 diabetes if your manganese level was high. So basically, a lot of manganese, you probably have diabetes type 2. But their high level, this was done in China, so I'm not even going to go down that road.
Yeah.
I don't know how reputable that thing was. But to put this in perspective, what they considered a high range was over 2.42. And that's mcg per liter. So just remember 2.42. And they said high. Then there was another test in Sardinia, which makes me wonder right off the bat, did they have a lot of sardines in Sardinia? Probably not. I know, another terrible dad type joke. But this study in Sardinia showed that there, with levels of about 14.2. Now remember, 2.42 to 14.2. So
Big
like
jump.
almost 7 times higher. And they were saying, oh, high levels of manganese could be related to type 2 diabetes. Well, this study said with levels like 7 times higher, showed no difference at all. So kind of shoots that first one down completely. So that was that one kind of counteracted the first one. And then they did another study in China. And that one, after doing actually, it was a much larger study, was, quote, inconclusive. So the link between manganese and diabetes, I don't think so. But they think, they air quote, think that it's involved in glucose, carbohydrate, and lipid metabolism. So they are saying that it's inconclusive, but suggests that it may have something to do with these things. So, I know, all this information and we end up with nothing.
Right.
Kind of crazy. So, those are the possible health impact positives, the possible links to something that's bad. So then we could talk about something that's actual factual. And I like to call this one the risks. So manganese toxicity is usually due to repeated exposures over and over. So you can have repeated exposure from work, or I like to run into this story all the time. I was just somewhere, can't remember exactly where I was, but I just heard, and the lady said, look, I've been drinking this water for 20 years. I love how it tastes.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was coming up with this, it's due to repeated exposures. Those are the words that echo in my head. It's like, repeated exposure, like every day for 20 years. So you can get toxicity from not just once. You're not going to, it's very unlikely that you're going to poison yourself immediately and have an impact. But repeated exposure does definitely impact you negatively. Now, I will say, if we were to, and we're going to talk about food. Actually, let's talk about food now.
Let's do it. I like
so repeated exposures. Where can you run into it? Well, obviously, you can run into it in your water.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about levels and stuff like that. But the biggest place that you're probably going to be running into manganese, if not at work, is in your diet. And I was actually surprised as hell to hear this list of sources, significant sources of manganese. First one, whole grains. So cereals and stuff like that.
Right.
Second biggest one, leafy vegetables.
Really?
Yeah. I know, it kind of caught me by surprise.
Right.
And followed by tea. That one, I was like, I did not see that coming. I'm like, tea? That's bizarre.
It kind of makes sense tied in with leafy vegetables.
Well, yeah, if you're brewing the leaf, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was good. I love how you put that together. Other sources, clams, oysters, mussels.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That's tough for you, man.
all the things that I love. Love me some oysters. And I'm working hard on my mussels. And dun-dun-dun. So, other sources, nuts. Like nuts from trees. specifically. Soybeans and legumes. So we've got soybeans and legumes. Is a peanut a legume? I think it is.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you're right.
I think it is. So peanuts. So I guess there you go. So all kinds of nuts. And then rice, black pepper, and other spices. And this one just destroyed me. Coffee. I was like, doggone it. I'm thinking coffee is super healthy, and here I am. Who knows what kind of manganese levels? We have the ability to test that.
That's true. You do,
We
don't
do. I
you?
just don't know if my machine can. We use it's basically got a laser, a photo eye,
Mhm.
and it shoots a beam through the sample. Makes me wonder. I don't even think it would work with water that is that colored, like black coffee.
Yeah, 'cause it's too opaque.
Yeah, you got to be able to see through it. If you can't see through it, it can't get a reading.
Right.
I will try to do a reading later on, but by the time we get to the next show, I'll brew a nice pot and I'll just see if I got any manganese in there.
Yeah.
More out of just curiosity. I'm not going to stop drinking coffee just because of that.
Right.
But yeah, so those are the sources. And if you were to start off, let's look at food first. You're going to start off as an infant, a baby, right out of the womb,
Fresh out of the cannon.
fresh out of the cannon. That's awful. So if you are looking for an argument towards breastfeeding, this is one, because breastfeeding actually protects the infant from exposure of manganese because it's already been filtered from the mother. So then of course it says baby formula can have elevated levels from the ingredients themselves and the water that you're using to mix it, if you're using water.
Yeah.
So right from ground zero, you want to be careful about what you're feeding your newborn baby. On the other side of the spectrum, elderly people are at an increased risk for manganism. Manganism. I know. I had to look that one up too. I was like,
Right.
manganism, is that a real word? I've never heard that before. But yes, it is basically poisoning from manganese.
Mm.
And kind of a quick overview of what that looks like. It resembles Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is one of those things you might recognize because of like Michael J. Fox.
Right.
Right. He was going downhill pretty quickly. And it presents itself as neurological issues of fine motor degeneration. That's kind of like the quick overview of it. So if you're a baby, you want to be protected from it. If you're elderly, you want to be protected from it. So all these folks that are senior citizens that are like, I've been drinking this water for 20 years. Now I'm remotivated to let them know that, yes, and now you're at a higher risk than you were 20 years ago.
Right.
So if anything, you want to be more careful. And then the last thing about like physiology, women tend to have more manganese in their blood than men do. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Very weird. Women carry more manganese, especially pregnant women. Maybe it's the body is kind of using this trace element to make sure that you don't run short.
Right.
Not sure, just theorizing. But manganese toxicity is a neurotoxicity. So it can show up, basically, if you're poisoning yourself with manganese, it'll show up early on, or could show up early on, as psychiatric abnormalities. That's a big catch-all, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're a little odd and touched in the head, you get your manganese checked.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it advances, this is terrifying stuff, actually. Postural deficiencies, meaning you're slumping and walking kind of hunched. Bradykinesia.
It's bradykinesia.
I know. See?
Yeah.
I already knew you were going to ask that, and I had to look it up.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what is bradykinesia? Like the Brady Bunch type? I don't know.
That's immediately
A lot of people kinesia?
Like just some guy named Brady?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know how it must have been somebody named Brady that like coined that term, but it means slow movement. So bradykinesia, slow movement. You can have shuffling gait, kind of, never lifting your feet up. You're just kind of scooting your feet across the floor. Mask-like faces, really weird. Fine motor skills going down the hill, bad. I got another one that I don't think you're going to be able to jump on. Micrographia.
Micrographia.
Yes. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah, tell me about that one.
Yeah, I'm looking it up, and at first I get this goofy book called Micrographia. And I'm like, no, I need to know what micrographia actually is. It is small writing. So apparently, as you're progressing with this, your writing becomes smaller and smaller. Is that the most bizarre thing you've ever heard of? And then speech difficulties.
Okay.
So like when I say it resembles Parkinson's.
Yeah.
It damn sure resembles like everything you've ever heard of with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really puts a whole new light on. You see somebody that's elderly that's got a lot of these characteristics, and then you test their water and they've got a shitload of manganese. And immediately I'm like, we got to fix this.
Yeah.
So we did some digging from what we can kind of gather, and I need to call one of the doctor resources and find out for sure. But my big question was, if you've got this stuff, can you reverse it?
Right.
Like Parkinson's can't be reversed.
Right.
But can you start to go backwards if you decontaminate? And they said you can have somewhat of you can kind of stop it from progressing. And there's been a little bit of limited success with chelation therapies and stuff like that. So it doesn't sound good. If you get to that point, you're probably too far gone. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But it's a trace element. Oh my gosh.
And blazing through
things here. I was going to leave everybody with a cliffhanger. Yes, when we come back, we're going to dig a little bit more into what makes us us and a couple of fun stories. So don't go away. Listen to a word from our sponsors. Hopefully we have some more. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Paul, host of Water Guy Unfiltered. If you're looking for fun topics like landfill juice and the history of coffee mixed in with things like haloacetic acids and the forever chemical PFAS, you've come to the right place. Check out Water Guy Unfiltered and learn the raw truth about water stuff, where it's educational and informative with a shot of humor just to keep it fun. We started as a weekly radio show, and now we're podcasted everywhere. Join us. And we are back.
We are back.
Hope the break was good to you.
Break was good to me.
All right, so we talked about all the weird, very inconclusive and vague nature of manganese.
Yeah.
But we hopefully were able to relate to everybody how bad it can be.
How concerning it can get.
Yeah, the thing, they don't really understand a lot about its benefits, if any, other than the fact that it's just one of those required essential trace elements. But basically, if you have too much of it, you can have some really bad permanent problems.
Yeah.
So we talked about where you can, how you can find it in foods. And the terrifying thing is that it's almost in like everything.
Right.
So you're going to get plenty of it just by eating a normal balanced diet. Now, what other things do you put inside your body that's not food? Water,
Yeah.
hydration, stuff like that. And apparently, if you drink huge amounts of coffee that may have manganese in it, that might not be the best thing either. But let's just peel back the layers of the onion and kind of look at water, because water is like one of the basics. So it was how much water should somebody, on average, drink a day?
Oh, jeez, I know this.
Males. I'll give you a hint.
Mhm.
There's a different number for men and women.
Right, yeah.
And if you're one of those that doesn't know if you're a man or a woman or doesn't believe in that, then I don't know what to tell you. Facts don't care about feelings. But
I want to say for men at least, because I'm familiar with it. You know, being a guy and all. I want to say like around like 120 to 150 fluid ounces a day.
oh gosh, you're gonna make me do math. 120 ounces a day. So yes, you're pretty darn close. Yes, because it was 3.2 quarts. That's pretty darn close to. That's about 80% of a gallon. A gallon's 128 ounces. So you're pretty much right in there. And you pulled a fast one on me. I just know that in terms of quarts, men should drink 3.2 and women should drink 2.3. So that's how I remember it, is the 3.2 and the 2.3.
Awesome.
And that's quarts. So men drink a lot more water because typically we're bigger.
Of course.
But do you know what percentage of the human body is water?
Oh, good. It's a pretty big percentage, if I
Yes,
remember correctly. Yeah,
it's definitely big. Let's assume that you're still alive.
so like 70 or 80%, somewhere around that.
Well, if you're close to being a jellyfish, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with the basics. Babies.
Okay.
When a baby first comes out, it's at its highest water content in our entire lives.
Okay.
So a baby, 78% water when it first comes out.
Wow. Babies are very squishy. So
Yes,
that
they're
makes sense.
very squishy.
And so are jellyfish.
Yes, and so
So,
are jelly. Yeah,
yeah.
you were right there. That's what you said, 70 to 80. I'm thinking, yeah, that's like a squishy baby jellyfish. But they start to lose their water content actually pretty doggone rapidly. So a 1-year-old baby is at, on average, 65%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I say it's like you drop from 78 to 65 in 1 year. So when you first come out, you're a big water balloon with arms and scream. And then you get older. So it's a big jump from 1-year-old to a fully adult man. And we're going to hit the 1-year-old, you're at 65. And you really don't drop that terribly much unless you're a woman. Then you drop a little more. But an adult male, 60% water. So you weren't that far off.
Okay. Yeah.
But that sounded like a lot when you first threw it out there
Yeah.
compared to a baby. So yeah, like men are 60% water and women are about 55% water. So why do you think that is?
Why is?
I know. I'm putting you on the spot on a lot of these questions.
Yeah.
They're going to get you in trouble later. So physiologically, the female body has more fat than a male body.
Okay.
And fat and water don't like each other.
Wait, really?
Right.
I thought it. Okay. Interesting.
No, you put oil and water in a pan, they do not like each other.
Okay. That makes sense.
So you can't really mix those. So the fat content in women displaces where the water would go. So that's where the extra 5% goes. So if nothing else, you learned that we are skinnier than women. Leaner, not skinnier. Women look much better. But anyway, all right. So water is, the whole exercise there was to show you that even no matter what you look at, you're at least 55% water.
Right.
If you're still alive. And you're supposed to be drinking darn near between over half a gallon to a gallon a day as a person. And if you have manganese in your water, that can be significant. And poisoning usually doesn't happen overnight. It happens with long-term exposure, repeated exposure. So hopefully I've beaten that fact home there. So you're probably thinking, oh, well, what's a recommended number to have in our water? Well, the reality is you don't want any manganese in your water.
Right.
And this goes back to the people. I almost said the word kooks. But it goes back to the people that call us up and they say, oh no, reverse osmosis water it's bad for you. It doesn't have any minerals. And to me, that's just the most ridiculous argument to go ahead. You can't pick and choose which minerals you want to put inside your body when you're just talking about raw water that's been unprocessed. So process the doggone water. And if you feel like you want minerals, put them in. I don't care.
Right.
You're getting your minerals from your food anyway. The water should really be pretty clean. So the EPA, they have a number of 0.05 milligrams per liter, or more commonly known as parts per million. So 0.05. This is a very small number. If you were to try to look at that in terms of like parts per billion, it's 50 parts per billion if you just move the decimal point over. To put this in perspective, the max for lead is 15 parts per billion. So it's really like a little more than 3 times higher than the limit for lead if you were to look at it in terms of quantity. Hopefully that's an eye-opener for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. The EPA has it currently classified as a secondary MCL, which is a maximum contaminant level, maximum contaminant limit, however you want to see the L. But basically, they say if you're at 0.05, you have hit the secondary, which is, I like to tell people, that's a highly recommended maximum.
Right.
But they're not going to make you drop it below it if you exceed it. Lead is a primary. Obviously, if you're more than the max on lead, the 15 parts per billion, they will make you fix that if you're providing water to somebody. But you can have water that's over 0.05 as long as, well, and this is where the states really take over. EPA doesn't really make you do anything. They just say it's highly advisable. But a lot of the states, they'll take these secondary MCLs and they'll say, look, we're not going to make you fix it, but you're going to have to at least tell everybody that's drinking this water that they're drinking water that has exceeded a maximum contaminant level.
I sent out a notice or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I might have said this before on one of the way earlier ones. We had a place that I got called into because they had fluoride. And fluoride has an MCL, what we call a primary, one of the enforceable ones, of 4. But they called me in and they had 2.5. And at that time, I wasn't even aware that there was a secondary MCL. So there's a secondary MCL on fluoride that was 2.0. So that's how I kind of got to understand the difference between how they handle primary and secondary. Because a primary, stop what you're doing immediately. You got to fix it.
Right.
A secondary, at least in Virginia here, for fluoride specifically, but the process is the same for a lot of the other ones. They had to put a notice up or notify everybody that was possibly consuming the water that it had exceeded this recommended maximum. And they had to leave that up until it no longer exceeded the maximum, basically until you fixed it. But you're going to love this part. How long do you think they had before they had to first post this notice?
How long?
It was like 11 and a half months.
You know what? I think I remember us talking about this another time.
Yeah, basically you test, you go, oh my, and you have a year, just short of I think it was like a day short of a year to go ahead and put the notice up. So for that whole year, people were drinking this stuff and they have no idea. And then they go ahead and post the notice.
That's crazy.
Yeah, nutty how some of that stuff works. But manganese, there really isn't anything that they need to do. Virginia does follow this. So there was one instance that Virginia Department of Health Office of Drinking Water, they pissed me off. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just get so mad at the bureaucracy of it. There was this one facility. It was a little strip mall, like a restaurant. It was, let's see, what was it? A restaurant, an office, another, like a pizza place, and something else. It was like 4 businesses in this one building, out kind of in the middle of nowhere, but they were fed by a well, and they had manganese it was significantly higher than this. So they did make them do testing for it, but they had this specific setup that it was a mess. They were using chlorine injection, and they were basically oxidizing the stuff and causing it to settle out, and the water was running black out of the filters. And I had a better idea going in there using ion exchange and all this other stuff. Long story short, they came back and said, "Oh no, well, we need a professional engineer's drawing of your layout by a licensed in the Commonwealth of Virginia." I'm like, for a frickin' little rough drawing picture of 2 tanks sitting next to each other? So I just let that one die. It was like a $15,000 project. I turned around and I was like, nah, I'm not dealing with those people.
Going to be an uphill battle.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to own this mess and these people for as long as I have equipment in there. So they kind of got put on the back burner. But one of these days, and I can't, it's funny thing is, I've tried to find a professional engineer that's certified and licensed. It is impossible to find somebody that has all of those credentials.
Really?
And if you can find them, they're going to charge you $5,000 to draw a little sketch. Yeah. So anyway, so that was way off the beaten path. So Virginia kind of follows it. North Carolina is even more strict. They don't just make you notify people, they'll actually make you fix it in certain areas. So the reason I bring up North Carolina and Virginia is, for those of you listening, is that I'm part of a dealership that we have basically 12 offices altogether. And we spread from, we have a couple offices in Virginia, a bunch of them in North Carolina and South Carolina, one in Georgia, and the one in Denver. And basically all of those things, every state has differences. So if one of our customers moves from one to another, they're always confused because we have to follow whatever the state says.
Right.
But we have folks that I like to tell here, I'm like, look, if your manganese level in Virginia isn't one of those things that they freak out over, they still consider it an aesthetic contaminant. It can cause staining and cosmetic issues. They don't mention all the neurological problems for some reason, probably because they don't want to scare everybody. But if you go to North Carolina over the border, North Carolina is a lot more proactive in trying to set rules and limitations and things. So they actually have certain areas in North Carolina that they specifically test for manganese, because they know that it can come from either natural deposits underground, kind of like it does up here, or it can actually be, unfortunately, pollution down there from industrial facilities. So different states can have different views on it. That's kind of the whole, the end of the story on the state straddle of manganese. Let's see here. So drink water that is lower than 0.05, preferably reverse osmosis. Carbons can be somewhat effective at reducing it, but not really removing it reliably. That would be a terrible way to basically roll the dice on your health.
Yeah.
So water is important. You want your water to be as pure as possible so that you don't poison yourself with at least that.
When you say carbons, you mean like carbon-based filters?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Like a glorified fridge filters and
like a
things
Brita
like that.
or something like that.
Yeah, the Brita would be minimally effective.
Right.
People always ask me, they're like, why would I even get a Brita? Because you'd be amazed how many people on wells have a Brita.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, there's only one point to a Brita, really. It's for city water.
Right.
It's there to help filter out some of the, some sediment that might be coming in right out of your tap. And it's there to reduce the chlorine and make the water taste better. That's really what it's there for.
Gotcha.
They are not for wells.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all for that. So, yeah. This week, well, that was the content on manganese. But I'm just dying to tell you about a couple of other things that happened this week.
Just tell me.
Because we heard about your tattooed guy at the gas station. If you're listening to this, you probably know that we also have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
This week has been off the freaking hook for people watching YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, bizarre. 3 people this week. Literally, more than 3 people have seen those, obviously. But we actually got calls from 3 people this week because they're like, hey, I saw Paul on YouTube. All the girls are just like, oh gosh, his head's gonna freaking explode. Don't tell him about that. So one of them, they didn't even tell me about till today. I was so excited, but apparently he called in on Monday. We sent one of our water specialists out there on Tuesday, and he got installed on Wednesday.
Wow.
Yes. So he found us and did a whole bunch of digging around, and this guy was definitely ready to go.
What kind of system did he want put in?
I don't even know. Like I said, they just told me this.
How fresh it was?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, yeah, we had a third one, but he's already installed. I'm like, what do you mean? We had a third one. You're just now telling me this? So that was the cool one that was local. But I walked in on, I think it was Monday, and I didn't know what I was walking into. It was like late in the afternoon. I was coming back from an appointment, and one of my technicians was in my office, and everybody else in the office is kind of in there with him, and I'm thinking, no, this isn't good. We must have some like disgruntled customer or something. And I hear speakerphone going, and he's talking to them about like troubleshooting something, and I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I want to go in there. It seems like a lot of people. And then I hear him go, oh, Paul just walked in, and I'm thinking, God, what did I just walk into? So I got blindsided with this one, and it turns out they're on a FaceTime with a guy. He's not a customer of ours, but a guy out of Texas. So
wow. Okay.
We were FaceTiming and troubleshooting a Connecticut sulfur guard unit. The guy was in Texas this whole time, and my first thought was, this thing looks brand new.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, it's basically it's not even a year old yet, and the dealer down there, apparently we're not all cut out of the same cloth when it comes to pricing.
Mm-hmm.
The dealer down there wanted $250 to come on out and look at it. So Sulfur Guard uses peroxide to clean itself, and that's really the nuts and the bolts. But he just needed to know like what the restart process was if you run out of that.
Right.
So he was watching my videos, and basically he called the office and we walked him through it, and it was kind of cool. They were like, oh, somebody in the office was actually videotaping the whole conversation. So
that's awesome.
We may post that on some social media
later
on. But yeah, that was a good start to the week. And then apparently that the other one came in, and we got him taken care of. And then today, right before we got kicked off here, we had another phone call from somebody out of New York. And he said, don't use his name. But I told him, I said, you know what, this week I'm going to definitely mention you on the podcast. But yeah, he called up because he had tested up in New York. He has a well, and he tested his water, and he came back positive for total coliform, which is a bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And up there, they were like, just throw some bleach in the well, the good old boy remedy.
Yeah.
So he did some like looking up on the internet and saw the video that I did about don't bleach your well.
Right.
And he's like, that's what I thought. He's like, you just made everything make official sense.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we were walking him through, if you can shock your house because that's part of like putting in a UV system.
Right.
So we're walking him through all that, and part of me is thinking, it's nice, but we're spending 45 minutes on the phone with somebody that's in New York, and we get all done, and it turns out he's actually probably going to be ordering the whole system from us and putting it in himself.
Oh,
So I'm like,
nice.
okay, this is cool. So we've had reach this week from Texas to New York.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and think I'm getting close to that micro influencer role that's so coveted out there. But yeah, it's pretty bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah, we did some videos last weekend, edgy ones. Remember my social media guy that was here?
Mhm.
Yeah, he's we've we've collaborated again, and he says I want to shoot some edgy videos, which edgy kind of scares me.
Mhm.
Edgy can go terribly wrong, so he wanted me to swear in these videos. He's like, I'll bleep it out, but it'll be funny as hell. So if you see some videos with me swearing, know that it was under protest. So that was last weekend, and then the big joke at the gym. So every morning I go to the gym. I have a trainer because I'm trying to fight the years. And every day he's like, all right, so what's your plan afterwards today? And I'm like, I have got to get caught up in the office. I'm so buried in paperwork and all sorts of other crap. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. See, let me know tomorrow how that works. So yesterday I come in and I get into the office and I have all the best intentions of digging in and doing what I'm supposed to be doing to get the accountant off my ass. And she's great, by the way, if she's listening. It's good that she's all over me for that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm digging in, getting the computer all booted up, and then I hear our office manager on the phone with somebody. And I always know I'm in trouble when I see her on the phone walking into my office. I'm like, oh boy. And she's like, so I hear her talking to this person on the phone, and she's like, so you have absolutely no water right now, and you're a restaurant. That's kind of an emergency. And the people were like, yes, absolutely. We don't know what's going on, but we're basically closed until this gets fixed.
Wow.
And she looks at me and I'm like, go ahead, put it on. So I'm like, I'll leave here in 12 minutes. So I went all the way over there and they had some hokey, quote, whole house descaler hooked up to this restaurant. And I don't know what kind of jackleg plumber put this thing in, but there was no bypass. There was no way to go around it. And it had basically exploded on the inside, and all the guts went into the plumbing and had plugged up every faucet in the
Wow.
oh yeah, it was bad. They had pot fillers because they do ramen at this place. So they have like the wok, but they've also got water that they can put into the wok for the noodle part. But those were completely stopped up. Everything was stopped. The bathrooms it said restrooms out of order on the only two bathrooms that they had. Sinks didn't work. There wasn't any water anywhere. So,
oh, jeez.
Yeah, I ended up cutting that old piece of crap out of there, and I'd basically disassemble everything in the entire restaurant, which some of those I've never done before, but now I know. Got them all running and got the restaurant back online, and they were overjoyed, and they have all new toilets, and I have some pretty cool pictures of the faucet aerators that had kind of acted like a filter and caught some of the stuff.
Mm.
And I got back and it's got these little spherical, some of the guts of the media look like little round marbles, but little teeny tiny things.
Very small beads.
Like beads.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the end of a tip of a pen. That small.
Wow.
Like really small. And I had the picture and I show it to Stacy in the office and I'm like, it's parasite eggs.
What?
She doesn't know how to take it. Because she's like, you are such a bullshitter. And she's looking at me like, is he serious? There's parasite eggs in the restaurants? I'm like, no, it's the media. It's the guts. It's their anti-scalent balls. But it made me realize that, yeah, I can try to make anybody believe just about anything if I really tried to. And she's like, nobody else would believe that. So of course one of the new guys comes in and I show the picture and I'm like, anybody know what these are? And they're all looking at it like I have no idea what that is. They just know it's an aerator with a bunch of garbage on it. And I said, these are parasite eggs. And the new guy's like, oh my gosh, he starts freaking out. So I got both of them. Yeah.
That's funny.
It was a funny day. So yeah, so saved a restaurant this week and had three YouTube folks come in from literally all across the country. So it's been an exciting, darn good week. Love what we do. And we're actually, that restaurant is going to be getting on board with our drinking water program and getting a real system put in there. It's not going to blow guts everywhere.
Awesome.
So more on that probably on the next podcast. So I should have that one figured out.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody got a little something out of today and some entertainment. And thank you all for listening to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have to ask that because if you don't do that, apparently it just doesn't work. But for those of you that look it up, feel free to call us. It's always an honor to get a phone call and people are like, oh my gosh, it sounds like Paul. I heard that. And I'm like, yes, it's me.
That's me.
Yeah. I do get the comments about when the FaceTime guy, he's like, oh, you have hair. Because I was bald in quite a few of those things. I went through the hair phase.
Yeah.
But anyway, see you guys in the next virtual life. Take care.